Tonight on Newscenter 8 at 10, she served in Congress for 8 terms, but tonight, Mary Rose Ocar faces federal charges stemming from the House banking scandal. You'll hear firsthand from Ms. Ocar.
Replacement players are getting warmed up, but will it be illegal for them to suit up this summer at Jacobs Field? We'll have some answers coming up.
The defense in the O.J. Simpson trial goes after the L.A. Police Department with a 1-2 punch. We'll show you the action in the courtroom, plus expert analysis in the studio.
And he overcame incredible odds in the 1988 Olympics, but tonight diver Greg Louganis faces the challenge of his life against a killer disease. Good evening, everyone. I'm Wilma Smith.
And I'm Tim Taylor. This is Newscenter 8 at 10.
Live from Cleveland's own Newscenter 8. Dick Goddard with weather, Casey Coleman on sports, Wilma Smith, and Tim Taylor. This is Newscenter 8 at 10.
I love you too. We love you too.
3 years ago, former Cleveland Congresswoman Mary Rose Ocar denied breaking the law, and although she denies it again tonight, Ocar is now under federal indictment on charges that could put her in jail for 40 years.
A 7-count federal indictment was handed down against the former Congresswoman late today. Accusations that included lying to the FBI and converting public money to her personal use.
Newscenter 8's Dick Russ has been in touch with Mary Rose Ocar and others involved in the case tonight, and Dick joins us now from our 24-hour newsroom.
Well, naturally, the former Congresswoman denies each and every charge and says she'll prove her innocence. But the severity of the federal charges speak for themselves. Conspiracy, filing a false financial statement, lying to the FBI, using public money for her own. The same issues that put Ocar out of office in 1992 may now put her in jail. The House banking scandal, in which congressmen were writing checks they couldn't cover, hit Mary Rose Ocar at the worst possible time while she was running for re-election in 1992.
Shake my hand, you old buddy.
She had written 213 of those checks, but unlike most of her colleagues, she was never exonerated by investigators. Tonight, Ocar told me she has been unjustly singled out.
I've never, ever profited from my public service. This selective prosecution by retired Nixon-appointed Judge Malcolm Wilkie and his partisan prosecutors have mounted a 3-year unprecedented investigation.
A bounced $16,000 check resulted in one indictment today, and allegedly lying to the FBI the month before the election led to another. Martin Hoke, who beat Ocar largely on the bounced check issue, told Newscenter 8 tonight this is a sad and disappointing day for those who had placed their trust in Congresswoman Ocar, and that it shows no one is above the law. The indictment also charges Ocar and 2 of her nephews with conspiring to defraud the Federal Election Commission through false 1992 campaign reports. Attorney Walter Bubna represents one of the indicted nephews, Joe DeMio.
It's totally a political, costly witch hunt, which the taxpayers have to pay for, and they're using Mary Rose as a target. Nobody should have to undergo this, no matter what political party you're involved in or who you help. Nobody should be a pawn to go after a candidate.
Another Ocar nephew, Ignatius DeMio, will plead guilty to a misdemeanor conspiracy charge and cooperate with prosecutors.
They went after my two nephews, whose mother just died of breast cancer, and one was just fed up being investigated all this time and harassed, and the other one refuses to plead guilty to something he didn't do.
Ocar says Republicans have been after her for a long time because she represents the real people, the little people of this country, and her enemies are trying to shut her and those little people up. Ocar's due in Cleveland tomorrow for a conference on health care. She says she'll keep her commitment and continue her fight. A fight, Tim and Wilma, with far more serious implications and consequences now than just losing a seat in Congress.
All right. And of course, as Dick alluded to, Mary Rose Ocar was not the only one involved in the House banking scandal. We now turn to our on-the-money advisor, Bob Henderson, with some background and perspective. Bob.
Well, Tim, you realize that this thing started back in October of 1991, and this scandal soon triggered a major emotional response from the public. Past congressional scandals were sometimes too convoluted for the general public to fully understand, but in this case, the bad checks made understanding a simple matter. The public realized that if an ordinary citizen wrote a bad check, they could pay a penalty of up to $25 or face interest on the overdraft amount. Well, not so for members of the U.S. House of Representatives who collectively kited over 20,000 checks worth $10.8 million at their members-only bank over a 3-year period. Let's see, 20,000 checks at $25 per check, and presto, $500,000 in NSF charges. A total of 329 members and former members of Congress wrote the bad checks, and 22 were labeled abusers. Okar was among them. Congressional leaders originally maintained the House bank wasn't really a bank, but the public wasn't buying that. Public outrage over abuse of privilege continued to mount, fueled by allegations of dope dealing at the House Post Office and unpaid bills by over 300 members at the exclusive members-only dining room. These bills themselves amounted to $355,000, so much for no free lunch. Tim and Wilma, during my days as a radio talk show host in this town, there was no topic that ever generated as much anger and interest as this topic, the House banking scandal.
Bob, it all happened over 3 years ago, though. What significance has it had?
Very interesting, Wilma. If you look at the current makeup of the Congress, about half the Congress has changed since the House banking scandal erupted in October of 1991. I think that's rather significant.
Certainly is. All right, Bob, thank you. The Centers for Disease Control have a brand new recommendation tonight concerning AIDS. Now, they suggest that all doctors counsel their pregnant patients about AIDS and advise them to get HIV screening. The idea is to prevent new cases in infants. About 2,000 babies are born with HIV in this country every year. Olympic gold medalist Greg Louganis reportedly has the virus that causes AIDS. He disclosed that in a taped television interview this week. Louganis has allegedly known he's HIV positive since 1988. Louganis won 4 Olympic gold medals for diving, 2 in 1984 and 2 in 1988.
Will the Indians be allowed to field a team of replacement players here in Cleveland? Well, the future of pro baseball in the city is becoming more cloudy tonight. There is a little-known city ordinance that could toss a curve to replacement players hoping to get a hit at Jacobs Field. Newscenter 8's Wayne Dawson joins us now from our newsroom. Wayne, how could this ordinance affect replacement players?
Well, they're considered strikebreakers, Tim, and the ordinance, which, by the way, was passed way back in 1976, prohibits the employment of strikebreakers in the city of Cleveland.
As they labor in the Florida sun, could it be in vain? Could the dreams of these replacement hopefuls be crushed by the weight of a Cleveland City ordinance?
It's a very legitimate ordinance.
At issue is Ordinance 605.15, the employment of strikebreakers. It states, no person, firm, or corporation directly involved in a labor dispute shall willfully and knowingly employ, contract, or arrange for the recruitment for employment any person who customarily and repeatedly offers himself for employment during the duration of a strike or lockout in place of employees involved in a strike or lockout.
So it grew out of situations of labor disputes in the manufacturing areas in the city where private firms would recruit strike breakers to come in and take the jobs away from people that are involved in legitimate labor disputes.
The question is, come opening day, will the replacement players be allowed to take the field here at Jacobs Field, or will the city ordinance be enforced?
Oh, absolutely it'd be enforced.
That is, however, if the city feels the law applies. The law department is currently studying the matter. Under similar circumstances, the Browns were allowed to field a replacement team during the football strike in 1987.
Is the city ready to challenge Mr. Jacobs in Major League Baseball? I guess that's the question. Well, we're ready to go up to the bat if we have to. If our law department tells us that it applies, then we will have to enforce the law, absolutely. No attempts to reach the Cleveland Indians and the Mayor Mike White administration were unsuccessful tonight. Meanwhile, in another development, the Teamsters say they will not deliver beer, hot dogs, or other concessions to any ballpark where replacement players are being used. This as strike talks broke off today with no end in sight. Tim, Wilma?
All right, Wayne, thank you. The defense in the O.J. Simpson murder trial hammered away at a very familiar theme all day today, the job the police did or did not do immediately after the killings. Newscenter 8's Dale Solly is covering the trial for us and says the hammering seemed to hit home, Dale.
And it did, Wilma, and on a number of key points at that. And each of the points centered on the scene of the crime. For example, blood samples on a rear gate weren't recovered until 3 weeks after Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were killed. We heard yesterday from police detective Tom Lang that her bare feet had no blood on them. He said today that no one took any pictures. And Lang admitted today that evidence beneath the victim's fingernails might have been compromised because plastic bags weren't attached to their hands. Small points, yes, but important ones as the defense builds its case of police incompetence and a rush to judgment against that man, O.J. Simpson. We're going to look at all of this in our in-depth trial analysis just about 40 minutes from right now. Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Judge Patricia Cleary is going to join us live to talk about this. We will join live our CNN colleague Linda Joyce when we go back out to Los Angeles. It all starts at about 10:50 tonight as Newscenter 8 at 10 covers the O.J. Simpson trial. See you then.
All right, we'll see you in a few minutes, Dale. Thank you. There are killers stalking the waters off the coast of Brazil tonight. Sharks have attacked 11 people along the shores of Brazil over the last year. Tiger sharks. One man lost a leg, another lost his life. Marine biologists are trying to figure out what's causing the sharks to attack. In the meantime, swimmers are being told to stay close to shore.
Still ahead on Newscenter 8 at 10, he was convicted of rape and sent to jail, but could boxer Mike Tyson be getting out of jail early? Some answers coming up.
And at 10:20, fact finder Tom Meyer and a top 10 list that will make you think twice before heading out for fast food when we come back.
There are conflicting reports tonight on whether there will be a hearing for the early prison release of former boxing champ Mike Tyson, serving a 6-year sentence for rape. Tyson's lawyers had claimed that there could be an early release hearing, but today Indiana prosecutors deny that. But as Newscenter 8's Mike DePasquale tells us now, no matter when Tyson is set free, a small town in northeast Ohio will welcome him home.
I think people would help him, you know, to deal with his concentration.
Is there anything you can tell your supporters, Mike? I felt bad for him. I really did.
In the small rural community of Southington, about an hour's drive from Cleveland, Tyson's lavish home sits empty. But like the gates bearing the ex-champ's name, opportunities for a new life apparently will open. Just ask Tyson's next-door neighbor.
People like him. He's very friendly. He shops at this little store down here. How's that look?
This is small-town America, where everybody knows everybody. Mike Tyson was no stranger here.
I think everybody's really glad that that type of person, you know, outstanding boxer, had took an area of this, you know, to make it his home.
But Tyson's storybook life as champ came crashing down. First, by losing the heavyweight title in 1990. Followed by a conviction of raping a Miss Black America beauty contestant.
He's, you know, served his time, and I feel that, you know, he was good for the community.
Whenever Iron Mike is released from prison, those backing a former champ say the idea is to have him here at Don King's training camp. The object, to be focused on one goal, and one goal alone. Visions of Tyson's past success are apparent inside promoter Don King's training camp. A crack at another title? People here have some advice for Tyson.
Stay away from the big city temptations.
In Southington, Mike DePasquale, Newscenter 8.
A Cleveland police officer has been suspended following a Tom Meyer fact finder report on a hit-and-run accident. 5th District Officer Hillary Kudnick has been suspended without pay. The disciplinary action follows allegations in the fact finder probe that Kudnick smashed into 2 motorists on the shoreway and did not stop. The victims claim Kudnick was speeding in a Corvette he was driving.
Are fast food restaurants really as clean as they should be? Wait until you see Tom Meyer's top 10 dirtiest ones coming up next.
And at 10:45, a no-nonsense local judge gives her read on the O.J. Simpson trial. We'll be back in a minute. Well, what did you have for lunch today? Perhaps you grabbed a burger or a chicken sandwich at your favorite fast food restaurant.
And did that restaurant make our Fact Finder's top 10 list?
Well, Newscenter 8's Tom Meyer has been scouring hundreds of food inspection reports. In part 3 of the Fact Finder top 10, Tom says you may be surprised at what some health inspectors found at some of the most popular restaurants around.
First I thought it was an insect of some type because I thought there were legs that were sticking out. But
Darlene Matthews had ordered a quarter-pounder with cheese. What she got was a quarter-pounder with cheese and bristles from a scrubbing brush that McDonald's used to clean its grill.
and it either had one of two chemicals on it. And one was a grill cleaner, and the other one was a sanitizer. And some of the ingredients in that are chlorine, bleach, and alkaline salts. And I just was shocked.
Darlene didn't make her nauseating discovery until she had eaten most of the chemically laced burger.
Oh, I got real sick. I got nauseous. I got dizzy.
Another restaurant added some roaches to a customer's carry-out order of fried rice and ham.
It was good, so I was eating it. And then, next thing I know, I see a big roach sitting on top of a piece of ham.
She ate this food, and more likely she ate some roaches.
I was thrown up in a garbage can. I couldn't say nothing.
Cuyahoga County health inspectors investigate complaints of all sorts of things in food, including maggots, hair, Band-Aids, screws, metal shavings, and plastic. They find hundreds of critical and not-so-critical violations in only 2 inspections a year of all restaurants.
Okay, that's going to be discarded. All right, good.
Less serious violations cover food storage, sanitation, and maintenance. Critical violations include food temperature, food quality, and food handlers. In our review of county restaurant inspections, we found food workers with hepatitis A.
One of the things we're most concerned about is how people handle food. What gets people sick is temperature violations and problems with cross-contamination of raw food and prepared food.
Which of the most popular fast food restaurants had the most food service violations last year? Our examination of local health department records was limited to the 5 franchises with the most restaurants: McDonald's, KFC, Subway, Burger King, and Dairy Queen. Among those 5 businesses, we compiled our top 10.
Okay, can we talk about...
Get out of here.
All right, can we talk about this, though? It's ridiculous. Can we talk about this?
In the land of Dairy Queen, where they say they treat you right, a couple complained about possible food poisoning after eating a blizzard. The manager at the DQ at 168th and Detroit and Lakewood gave me the cold shoulder. I tried to show him the 10 food service violations his restaurant was served with last year. 8 of them were critical, including hot dogs like this that were left out at room temperature. Instead of showing me a table to sit down to talk about this, the manager showed me the door.
Get out of the store. This is so stupid.
A second Dairy Queen on Mayfield in South Euclid had 12 violations last year, 2 critical.
No, wrong yellow.
4 McDonald's made our list. The one on Sloan Avenue in Lakewood had 23 violations, 13 of them critical, including soup and chicken that were left out at room temperature. 2 people complained of food poisoning after eating a burger. The McDonald's on Playhouse Square had 15 violations. We found repeated violations for roaches. One customer complained about a roach in his chicken sandwich. At the McDonald's at 114th and Buckeye, a customer complained of a roach in his coffee. This Mickey D's had 13 violations last year, including freezer-burned chicken among 4 critical violations. Another customer got nailed at the McDonald's on Turney Road in Garfield Heights.
I mean, that's pretty gross.
Lisa Hepper said she lost her appetite when she saw a large artificial fingernail in her salad.
I mean, if I have to worry about fingernails in the salad, do I have to worry about then whether or not they clean their hands or how they prepared it? Did they prepare it right? Did they cook it?
The Turney Road McDonald's where she bought the salad had 33 violations last year. 5 were critical and included having rotten tomatoes and storing toxic chemicals near food. I was hungry for some answers.
I just had a question about a few of the problems you had in 1994. I wonder if they've been corrected yet, right here.
Well, I'll tell you what, my supervisor is here, and we'll let him talk to you.
Just wondering if you've taken care of some of the problems you had in 1994. Have you taken care of these?
Excuse me, I'll have to find out from my supervisor.
I thought you were the supervisor.
I am, sir, but...
They finally routed me to a corporate spokesman who said the company takes immediate action to correct all violations. None of the McDonald's on our list had as many violations as the Subway on Mayfield Road in Mayfield Heights. 9 of the restaurant's 36 violations were critical. The owner says they weren't his problems.
Previous owner, no doubt. We haven't had any.
Not so.
When did you take over?
October 1st.
Okay, well, here's an inspection from October 12th.
What is it?
It shows 6 violations, 2 critical. Suddenly, I seem to jog his memory.
Machine, not thawing frozen food properly.
Yeah, this was the first inspection we had, and everything since then has been taken care of.
This subway may have gotten back on track, but a couple weeks later, record show inspectors showed up to investigate complaints of food handlers not washing their hands.
If they're not washing their hands properly and they're working with food, one sick food handler can infect an entire group of 200 people.
The lone Burger King, which made our list, is at 96th and Broadway. 14 violations, 2 critical. One customer complained about getting sick. Rounding out our list are 3 KFC restaurants. The one on Pearl Road in Middleburg Heights tallied 15 violations, 3 of which were critical and included the cleaning and sanitizing of pop machines and the meat slicer. The Kenny King at 12601 Broadway in Garfield Heights had 14 violations, 1 critical. Also, a family complained of food poisoning. Another KFC on Broadway, 6241 Broadway, was the subject of a food poisoning complaint. 2 of the restaurant's 15 violations were critical. Lee Sueda says there was nothing finger-looking good about the chicken, mashed potatoes, and stuffing dinner she and her husband ate. They both became violently ill.
Vomiting, diarrhea, uncontrollable, and, headache, body aches, basic food poisoning.
The good news is that each and every restaurant in this report, including KFC, corrected their violations. And usually that's what happens. But remember, each restaurant is inspected just twice a year. There's no telling how dirty or how clean restaurants might be the rest of the year. It's extremely rare when the county revokes a restaurant's license. It happened only twice in 20 years. The county health department gives owners every opportunity to comply with the law, and it seldom, if ever, goes to court seeking fines for food service violations. Tim, Wilma?
And Tom will continue his amazing reports tomorrow night at 10. I think what would make us feel better right now is a good forecast.
Well, let's get off that subject.
And as the song goes, the sun will come out tomorrow. Huh?
Well, on our weather,
cheery here.
On our weather menu tomorrow will be relatively mild air, and then tomorrow night a cold front comes in, and by that time cold enough to, I think, see some snowflakes again, and Friday looks like a cold, blustery day, but then getting better for the weekend.
Good.
Leave you on that note, but I'll be back right after this.